Right now, as you read this, there is probably a voice in your head, not literally, but a kind of internal narrator, reading along, commenting, processing. Most people assume this is universal, that everyone experiences it. They are wrong. A significant portion of the human population moves through their entire life with no voice in their head at all, no running commentary, no internal narrator, complete silence inside. And until very recently, psychology did not even have a word for it. In 2024, researchers Johanna Nedergaard and Gary Lupian published a study in Psychological Science that formally introduced the term anendophasia. It describes the complete absence of inner speech, the condition of thinking entirely without words. Before this paper, the phenomenon had no clinical name, no formal definition, no agreed-upon way to study it. People who experienced it had no language to describe what they were missing, because the people around them had never considered that an inner voice was something you could be missing in the first place. The researcher who has spent the most time on this question is Russell Hurlburt, a psychology professor at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. For over 50 years, Hurlburt has been studying what actually happens inside people's heads using a method he developed called descriptive experience sampling. Participants carry a device that beeps at random intervals throughout the day. When the beep goes off, they stop and record exactly what was happening in their inner experience at that precise moment. Not what they usually experience, not what they think they experience, what was actually there at the moment of the beep. What Hurlburt found dismantled a basic assumption most people carry without realizing it. Inner speech, the voice in your head, is not the default mode of human thought. It is one of 5 distinct inner experience phenomena he identified. The 5 are inner speaking, inner seeing, feelings, sensory awareness, and unsymbolized thinking. Inner speaking is the voice most people assume is always running. But across thousands of participants, Hurlburt found that inner speech occurs only about 20 to 25% of waking moments, even in people who report having it constantly. The other 75 to 80% of thought happens through imagery, sensation, emotion, and something Hurlburt calls unsymbolized thinking. Unsymbolized thinking is perhaps the most difficult to describe. It is the awareness of a thought, a complete and definite thought, without any words or images attached to it. You know something, fully and completely, without any internal language to express it. For people with anendophasia, this is not one mode among several. It is the only mode. They do not think in words. They think in pictures, in spatial reasoning, in abstract knowing that arrives without narration. When they need to communicate, they translate their internal experience into language for the first time. At the moment of speaking, the voice in their head is not quieter than yours. It does not exist. Now consider what this means for things we assume require internal speech. Memory. Research suggests that inner speech plays a role in encoding verbal memories. People with anendophasia may encode and retrieve memories differently, relying more on visual and spatial cues than on narrative reconstruction. Self-reflection. Much of what we call thinking about ourselves involves inner narration, the story we tell about who we are, what we did, what we should do next. For people without inner speech, this process works differently. Not necessarily worse, but differently. Reading. Most people subvocalize when they read, hearing the words as an internal voice even when reading silently. People with an endophasia often report that reading is a purely visual process for them. The words map directly to meaning without passing through sound. There is a detail in Hurlburt's research that tends to surprise people. he found that people are profoundly unreliable narrators of their own inner experience. Most people who report having a constant inner monologue, when studied using descriptive experience sampling, show that inner speech occupies far less of their experience than they believed. And some people who report having no inner voice are found to have more inner speech than they realized. The inner experience is real. The self-report of it is often wrong. This means the true prevalence of anendophasia is genuinely uncertain. Estimates range from 5 to 10% of the population based on self-report. But Hurlburt believes self-report systematically distorts the picture in both directions, which means the actual number of people navigating life without an inner voice, or with far less inner speech than assumed, may be significantly higher than any current estimate suggests. Here is what makes this genuinely important beyond curiosity. If a significant portion of the population thinks without words, then many of the tools we use for learning, therapy, introspection, and communication are built around an assumption that may not apply to them. Cognitive behavioral therapy, for example, relies heavily on identifying and restructuring internal verbal thought patterns. For someone with anendophasia, there may be no verbal thought pattern to restructure. The therapy assumes an architecture of mind that some people simply do not have. The inner voice has been treated as a given for so long that its absence has been invisible, not pathological, not disordered, just different, and until 2024, nameless.